AI has taken yet another job, parenting. You might have heard about this from the New York Post. Quote, I co parent with ChatGPT. I love turning off my brain and letting AI help raise my child. Now, a lot of people are pointing out that this article is kind of rage bait because the contents of the article are actually not as bad as the headline suggests. Even with an in person partner, are we still using that? We're still saying partner? Okay, even with an in person partner, Lillian Schmidt was sick of shouldering the mental load of motherhood. So she's trained ChatGPT to become a second mommy, tasking it to draft shopping lists, create meal plans, plan birthdays and vacations, and revolutionize bedtime. Now, that's actually not that bad, in my opinion, to use AI to make shopping lists, plan birthdays, plan vacations, things like that. I've used AI to plan vacations before. When I went to Vietnam, I was like, hey, make an itinerary of some things that are cool to do in Vietnam. It was very helpful. But I think where this gets weird is if you're planning birthdays for your child based on AI alone, which I wish we had more detail because I don't even know if that's what she's doing. But if you're using AI to be like, hey, what's a cool birthday idea for a toddler? Then you're kind of taking the personal aspect out of it because the cool thing about birthdays, especially if you're a kid, is like your parents thought about what you like and they made a birthday party, they planned everything out, they got you presents based on that. And so the whole thing about birthdays is it's an expression of love in that we take the time to understand you, we take the time to listen to you, and based on what we've learned about you, our child, this is what we think you would like as a birthday party. And if you nail it, that's awesome. But if you're just like, hey, what do kids like nowadays? What should I plan as a birthday party? That's kind of lame. So later in the article, it goes on. She says, I had never let it make decisions, but I always ask it for advice. She said of her computerized co-parent, insisting, however, that the bot does not usurp the role of her human honey. What does that mean? Who wrote this? Who wrote this? What does that mean? Okay, so that's good, right? Because she's not letting the AI, she's not saying, "Hey, decide this for my child" or something like that. She's just asking for input, which is good. But even then, it's like your parenting is influenced by this robot, this artificial intelligence that was programmed by some nerds in Silicon Valley. And I just think it's healthy to be suspicious of that. Okay, so she says, our life is so busy, explained Schmidt. The mental load is a lot. My partner is very involved with the kids and does his fair share, she added, of her 35-year-old fella. See, it's a guy. Just say my boyfriend, my husband. Why are we saying partner? Why are we doing this? What is this? No. She goes on, but our brains work differently. He's a doer and takes on the planning. I do the thinking. Another weird thing about this is like she's acknowledging that, hey, my boyfriend or husband, who she calls her partner for whatever reason, uh, is more of this type of person, and I'm more of this type of person, and therefore we need this AI thing to come in and fill the gap. When normally, before AI existed, you would kind of change and mold to become what fills the gap for the other person, right? When you're in a relationship, one person in the relationship has some strengths and the other person has different strengths, and you both have different weaknesses, and you kind of try to adapt to that until ideally, eventually, in the best case scenario, those two things work out and you fill in each other's weaknesses, and now you're a thriving couple. Doesn't now it's obviously not going to work perfectly, but I feel like that's the goal, right? It just doesn't feel healthy to, instead of try to improve in the ways that you're not, right now optimal, you instead say, well, just let the AI take care of that and I'm not going to change at all. And then at the very end, they include this, I guess it's like a caption of a TikTok video that she posted. And there's just a bunch of kind of jabs at her partner, at her husband. So it says, even with a loving, supportive partner, I still often feel like the default parent. Hmm. And then towards the end of the caption, it says, and the best part, whenever I ask for something, it just does. No follow up questions like, where do I find that? Or, okay, but which one? It just does. If you're drowning in mom life and want a co parent who never forgets the sunscreen or asks you to write things down, you'll find the exact prompts in the comments. This just feels like she's unhappy with how much help she's getting from her spouse, and she's using ChatGPT to accommodate that, which to be honest is understandable. But I mean, shouldn't the goal be to, hey, let's improve things here a little bit from both sides, and instead of trying to bring in a third party to make things easier on one parent, we can say, let's work together on this. But it sounds like instead she's trying to be like, well, No, he's great. Everything he's doing is great, but I just need more help. But then she's making kind of jabs at him like he forgets the sunscreen, he asks too many questions. What is this? Now, again, I don't think that she's doing anything wrong necessarily. Like these don't feel like super egregious things to be doing, but it does feel like a bit of an outsourcing of responsibilities. And this isn't only done with AI. This is done with a bunch of things. For example, within Catholicism, there are a lot of complaints of people who they say, parents shouldn't just outsource their catechesis to their parish or their, Catholic school. Instead of just expecting the church or the Catholic school that your kid might go to teach your kid everything about the faith, you should teach your kid about the faith primarily. And that's true. And there's even a document from Pope St. John Paul II that speaks to this. So in Familiaris Consortio, published in 1981, paragraph 36 says the task of giving education is rooted in the primary vocation of married couples to participate in God's creative activity by begetting in love and for love a new person who has within himself or herself the vocation to growth and development. Parents, by that very fact, take on the task of helping that person effectively to live a fully human life. And it goes on later in the same paragraph to say the right and duty of parents to give education is essential since it is connected with the transmission of human life. It is original and primary with regard to the educational role of others, on account of the uniqueness of the loving relationship between parents and children. It is irreplaceable and inalienable, and therefore incapable of being entirely delegated to others or usurped by others. So basically, what this is saying is that parents are the primary educators of their children, and that role cannot be replaced or delegated to anybody else, whether that be, an education system, whether that be the Catholic Church, or even artificial intelligence. No, nobody can take that role except for the parents themselves because you have a unique relationship with your children that cannot be imitated by anybody else. Familiaris Consortio is a wonderful document. I highly recommend everybody go and read it. And I feel like there might be a need soon for Pope Leo to release something kind of like this, but regarding AI specifically. I feel like he's going to do that either way because he's been really harping on this AI topic, and there's a lot of need for people to hear how AI can appropriately be used in certain areas of life and how it can become inappropriate if they use it or give it too much authority or delegate too much to it. And it seems like parenting is a good example of that, where, of course, AI could be helpful in some areas of parenting in ways that are appropriate. But where does that go too far? I feel like Pope Leo could provide a lot of insight into that. And interestingly, just a couple of days ago, the BBC posted an article talking about what Pope Leo has been saying about AI. As the BBC says, quote, Pope Leo the 14th has told the Vatican's First Mass for Catholic social media influencers that human dignity needs to be protected online as the world faces the challenge of artificial intelligence. He says nothing that comes from man and his creativity should be used to undermine the dignity of others, but that it should be used for the benefit of all humanity. So he does believe, it seems, that there is a sense in which AI can be good. It's a tool that can be used for good, it can be beneficial, and it should be developed with human dignity in mind. Because, of course, there are ways that it can go obviously off the rails and wrong. And this is so important because I think we're all well aware of the ways that AI can help, but we might be blind to some of the ways in which it can harm the human dignity of others. For example, if you are a parent or a spouse and you're using AI in a way that is unhealthy, maybe you're relying on AI too much rather than actually listening to your spouse or your child or actually interacting with your spouse or your child, or maybe you're accommodating for some weakness that you have rather than improving for your spouse or your child, then you are neglecting the dignity of your spouse or your child, whoever it is in that situation. Because you only get one. You get one set of parents, you get one spouse. That's it. That's it. Game over. And if your spouse is only left with you, if all your spouse has is you, and you just allow yourself, you just accept that you're going to be subpar in some ways, then you are neglecting the dignity of your spouse. And of course, it's going to be hard at times. There's going to be times when you want to take shortcuts, and there's even going to be times where it's understandable to take a shortcut. But whoever that is, your child or your spouse, whoever that is, deserves for you to be the type of person who will grow and try to meet the challenge rather than try to dodge it. Because that person has dignity. Your child has dignity, your spouse has dignity. And as such, that person now who you've agreed to take on this role in their life deserves for you to actually take on that role in their life. And you can do it. You got this. Anyways, there's your unsolicited advice for the day. Hopefully this was interesting. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like it. subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. We also have a bunch of merchandise that you can see below this video, some of which includes this hat, which I think is absolutely wonderful. But we got shirts, we got other hat designs, we got coffee mugs, and all the rest. So go and check that out if you want to support the channel. Anyways, until I see you next time, God bless.